the setting of Matthew 5 is the feast of the Jews at Jerusalem. So Jesus is coming out of Galilee, and there are a lot of disciples that are picking up along the way and walking with him. So the crowd just keeps growing and growing and growing, which is good because they need to hear what he has to say. They're pretty well on board with the first of the Beatitudes because it's our relationship from God to man. And it says in verse 10 of chapter 5, "Blessed are they which are persecuted." Now you say, now wait a minute. You mean it's good that I'm persecuted? Well, read on. Persecuted for righteousness' sake. Yes, that is good. If people are demeaning you and cutting you down because you're a Christian, then you're blessed because you have lived a life that has shown that you are. That's the only way that they know. But anyway, he goes on to say there, "For theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceedingly glad, for great is your reward in heaven, for so they persecuted the prophets which were before you." Now, Jesus said this is not anything new. Nothing new about this at all. This has been happening for eons of time, and God's people will always suffer something similar to that. But there's one kind of persecution that we don't need to be involved in, and we have full control over it. And that is persecution of one another, vengeance against one another over something. And if you look at Romans chapter 12 and verse 19, you will see that it says there, "Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath. For it's written, vengeance belongs to me. I will recompense, says the Lord." Lord said, you don't have to handle this. I saw it. I have recorded it, and it will be brought up at the judgment day itself. So what have you gained? Are you trying to play the place of God? We are if we take out personal vengeance on someone. There's another statement that is made in 2 Thessalonians chapter 1 and verse 8. There is a statement made that gives some idea of what God has in store for people that would do that. He said in verse 8, "In flaming fire, mighty angels, taking vengeance on them that know not God and have not obeyed the gospel of Jesus Christ." What a terrible thought. What a terrible thought. Some things that we do leave us in such dire straits on down the road when we pass away, on down the road when we quit the walks of men, and we've got, we got to come to grips with eternity there. The Bible says we've got to stand before the judgment seat. Hebrews said that. And also, God's going to judge us fairly with great equity. We're not going to be able to say, I didn't do that, because if you didn't do it, he's not going to say anything or bring out any accusation against you if you didn't do it. In the little book of Jude, very small book, but it has some powerful statements that are made in it. He says this in verse 7, "Even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities round about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire." I don't know about you, but that's not something that I want to be involved in. That's not something that I want on my resume on down in eternity, because if I'm passing out a resume and if I'm looking at my life or writing a biography of my life, it's not going to be pretty. So when we look at this whole idea of vengeance, God knows what's going on. He knows how people are being treated. He knows the rights and wrongs. He knows when people are being taken advantage of. He knows all of that. And somehow, some way, now not necessarily in this life, but somehow, some way, he will make all things right. Your home will be in heaven. The avengers will not.